Hi, welcome to At Home with Adam. I'm very excited for you to join me on my very first YouTube video. I'm very excited because my nephews, who are 8 and 5, they're the ones who talked me into doing this. So I'm very excited to show all of you how to bake and cook your favorite recipes. My very first recipe that I'm going to show you guys today is actually scones. It's fitting because my first recipe I ever did in home ec, which was in 7th grade, was scones. So why don't we just get right in. So when making scones, just simple ingredients. You have all-purpose flour, granulated sugar. For salt, I like to use kosher salt. We have our baking powder. We have unsalted butter. A little known fact is unsalted butter is actually fresher and salt is a preservative. So salted butter actually has a longer shelf life. So I like to use fresher butter. We have eggs, vanilla. For my wet ingredient, I like to use cream. You could also use milk or half and half. And then the jams I have for later. Now when measuring flour, it is important. Let me show you a helpful tip when measuring flour. You never want to go into your flour bowl like this because you're actually packing more flour into your recipe, and that could cause for a dry scone or another dry recipe you might be baking. So what I like to do with measuring my flour is I use a spoon and I just scoop it into the cups. It might take a little extra time, but it's worth it because you don't want a dry scone at the end. All right, so for flour you would need a total of 2 3/4 cups. And then when I level it off, you just level. You can use the back of the spoon so you're not using another dirty instrument, and just pour. So 2 3/4 cups of flour. So next dry ingredient you want to add to the bowl is 1/3 cup of sugar. Simple way to do this: put your 1/3 cup into the flour and just shake it off to make it nice and level. Pour it in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Make sure you're using baking powder, not baking soda. Okay? Now with baking powder, again, level, nice and level, a tablespoon. And then if you want, use your finger. So this way you don't have to dirty another dish. Pour right in. And then lastly is my kosher salt. I need about 3/4 of a teaspoon. Half teaspoon and a 1/4. Now, once I have all my dry ingredients, I want to whisk. Nice. So you disperse all the ingredients within that one bowl. So nice, whisk it really well, a couple seconds, and this is what it should look like. Alright, and then we're going to put this dry ingredient bowl off to the side. Great, now for your wet ingredients, you need a smaller bowl. Okay, and then first start off with 2 eggs. Now the way I was taught in culinary school, as well as the Swan and Dolphin Hotel I worked for Disney, you never want to just crack your eggs into the bowl because if they're a bad egg, you'll have to start the process all over. So what I like to do is crack my egg into a smaller container, make sure it smells fine, and make sure that there's no cracked eggshells, and you just throw it in the bowl. And these are large eggs, not medium, so you will definitely want to use 2 large eggs in this recipe. The next thing I'm going to take is my 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. 1, 2. And then lastly is a 1/2 cup of cream, 1/2 cup of milk. So whatever you have at home, cream, milk. You could do half and half. Good. Now pour. And then take your trusty whisk and then just whisk it. Make sure you've got those egg yolks nice and mixed. It should be a light pale yellow. It should look like that. When it comes to butter, the recipe does call for 8 tablespoons, but if you look on the outside of a butter, it actually breaks down how many tablespoons are in each butter stick. So it's 8 tablespoons for 1 whole stick. So I need a whole stick of butter. Now what I did before I started, I actually stuck this butter inside the freezer, because you don't want the butter a soft consistency because it'll help with creating the dough. It'll also add melted butter will cause the flour mixture to be a little bit liquidy, and you don't want that. And then you take your box grater, cheese grater, works, and then you are just bringing the frozen butter down and you are getting little clumps that look like this. Okay? Little clumps. And then once you do that, you throw all the butter in there. So you will need to do it for the whole stick of butter. Okay, so this may take a couple minutes. And when you get to the end of the butter, please be careful. You do not want to shave off your thumb or your other fingers. Trust me, I've done it before. So now when you have all the butter added into your dry ingredients bowl, you can use a fork, but why bother? Just get your hands in there and just slowly lift the flour up over the butter. Okay, and then you could do this, make it nice coarse, crumbly, get your hands in there and just shake your hands back and forth. Okay, make sure the butter gets incorporated into that flour mixture, because those scones are going to be nice and buttery and flaky, which is the way you want it. Okay, if you have big chunks of butter that didn't get cut up, just break them with your hand. Break them apart with your hand. Now, the reason I picked scones is not only because it was the first recipe I ever made, but it brings back memories of when I was little and my family lived in Washington State. Every year we went to the Puyallup Fair and we would get there first thing in the morning. And mind you, I'm not a morning person, but we would wait in line for the Fisher Scone booth at 8 in the morning, and the scones were nice and hot, filled with raspberry jam and butter. Some of the best that I've ever had. So I'm trying to recreate that, but we're going to make it with different jams that I've actually made already. Alright, perfect. If you don't feel any more butter or clumps of butter, you should have a consistency that looks like this. Nice. If you see a little lumps, that's okay. Just make sure there's no thick pieces of butter. Once you're finished with the butter and the flour mixture, this is where you want to add your dried fruit. I'm not adding any fruits to this. You could add raisins, you can add dried cranberries. You would want probably about 1 to 2 cups of them. This is the stage you want. So once you mix those dried fruits in, mix it with your hands before you add the wet ingredients. But I'm going to go ahead and start adding the wet ingredients. Make a quick whisk and then just slowly pour it in. Make sure it gets all over. Okay. And then what I would do, maybe pour half of it in. Take your spoon or a spatula and just start mixing it in. Okay, get it all up in there. Okay, and then I'll add the rest. Trusty spatula will clean out the bowl, make sure to get all that liquid out. Okay. Now, once to this point, this is where, again, get your hands in there. Okay, incorporate all of that stuff. Yeah, good. You want a dough. So this is where you're going to tell if it's too dry or too wet. If it's too dry, add a little bit of more milk. If it's too wet, add a little bit of flour. And actually, this is a good consistency. So we did very well. So we're just going to mix it a couple more minutes. Yep. You could do it with a spoon, but I like getting my hands in there to make sure all the ingredients are incorporated. And then once you get there, once you feel it good, try to put all of the ingredients, clump it up together into a ball of dough. Okay, your dough should look like this. Okay, if you still see some pieces that are a little dry, mix it with your hands. Knead it a little bit, but your dough should look like this. Okay, and just put it back in the bowl and let it rest, and go ahead and clean up your workstation for the next step. Now what I did was I kneaded the dough for about 2 to 3 minutes, and as you can see, the bowl's really empty, there's no dry bits left. And then it's a nice, pale yellow dough consistency. I mean, shouldn't be sticky in your hands anymore. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this dough and transfer it to a parchment lined cookie sheet. Now if you don't have parchment paper, that is okay. You can leave it without parchment paper, just flour it, do not grease it. Okay, so I'm going to take my baking pan and sprinkle a little bit of flour. Okay? And then I'm going to take the dough and I'm going to put it on my parchment and I'm just going to pat it into a circle. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to cut this in half. Okay? You don't have to worry about weights or anything like that. just eyeball it. So now you're going to have 2 balls of dough. Okay? Now you're going to flatten it into a pancake. Circle, and you want the thickness to be about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, it should be about a 5-inch diameter. If it's not, don't worry about that. Just get it as much as you can. Okay, and if it's still too thick, just keep patting it. I don't want to use a rolling pin. You can if you want, but again, why bother? You like dirty another dish. Okay, that should be good. So I'm going to leave this one here. I'm going to work on this one. I can smell the butter from here. It smells really good. I can just taste. Now, alright, so this is good. Okay, so now you should have 2 flat discs like so. Now, if you miss the next step, that's okay. You can do it afterwards. But what you're going to do is you are going to take a little bit of cream that you used your recipe for. You're going to just a little. You're going to take a brush and you're going to just go over the top of it with a little cream, milk, half and half, whatever you use for your recipe, and just cover it. Okay. And you don't need a lot, you just need to just cover the top. As you can see, it is a thin layer of milk, cream, half and half, whatever you have at home. Just a thin layer, and good, you're good. Now, to set it up, what you're going to do is you're going to cut these. Okay, you're going to go straight down the middle. Okay, straight down this middle, turn straight. Okay, and then you can do, so you know what? I'm just going to leave it as we're making 8 scones. You can cut them in half again. They will be smaller, but I like having big scones. So we'll do 4. But for this one's a little big. I'll show you. You just cut them in half again. Okay? So you have a choice. You can have the big scones, or you can have smaller ones. Okay? Just know that the bigger ones are going to take a little bit longer to cook. So to save time, we'll go ahead and cut these in half as well. Now I know out there at stores they have a scone pan. You don't need it. This is simple as that. You don't really need a scone pan. So once I have them all cut up, spread them apart on the cookie sheet about maybe 2 inches. If you need another cookie sheet, grab one. But you don't really need anything more. Okay. That's fine, looks good. So we're gonna have 16 scones. Now, the next step is you wanna wrap this with saran wrap. And because we've worked on it with our hands, the butter is kind of soft now. So you wanna stick it into the freezer for about 15 to 30 minutes. Now the good news is if you want to hold on to these till later and actually bake them a month from now, this step, put them in a freezer, freeze them for half an hour, throw them in a Ziploc, and they're good for a month. You can cook them later for a month. But cover with this red saran wrap right now and then stick in the freezer about 15 minutes to a half an hour. So it's been 30 minutes in the freezer. I'm just going to take off the plastic wrap. And now during that time while they were in the freezer, I preheated my oven to 425 degrees. And we are going to stick this pan on the top shelf. You don't want to do a lot. Put it on the top. And we're going to cook it for 18 to 25 minutes. They want to be a nice golden brown, so you want to check them about after 18 minutes to see if they're golden brown. If not, cook them a little bit longer. Oh, very nice. So I cooked these for about 18 minutes. As you can see, they're nicely golden brown on top. Before you dig in, you want to give them maybe 5 to 6 minutes to cool down, but they're best served warm. Alright, so wait a couple minutes and then we'll show you how to serve them up. Now, as you can see, beautiful golden brown color. You can smell the butter. Now, to properly serve a scone, you can leave it blank like this with nothing in it. It's like a biscuit. However, what I like to do is take a scone, cut it in the middle, get in there, nice in the middle. It creates 2 pieces, and then I slather it with some butter. In this case, I use country crock, but you slather it with some butter. Okay, both sides, or just one. Now, and I fill it with jam. Now, for me, I have created my own homemade jams. As you can see, I have several flavors here, but I have over 400 jars made. I have nectarine vanilla, I have apple spice, this one is peaches and spices. I already have this one open, it's one of my favorite, it is my caramel apple jam. Open this, let you guys see what it looks like. Okay, and now when I take the jam and then I just spread it inside my scone. And then however much, lot or little you like, and then just take a bite. Oh, the cinnamon apple jam with the butter and the warm scone, delicious. Highly recommend it. And if you like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe below. And if you did try to make scones on your own, wonderful. I really want to see them. Please take pictures, and you can email me at homewithadam@gmail.com, and then my next video, your pictures might be shown on our video. And if you have any other suggestions for my next video, please email me, please comment, and I look forward to seeing you again. And as always, remember, you can bake anything at home if you reach for the sky, and don't forget, if you miss, you're still among the stars. See you later. Now, the jams I use for my scones, I made myself, so if you're interested in some of the flavors, please email me or comment below, and we'll send you a list of all the jams flavors we have. Again, I have over 400 jars of jams that I made this past summer, and they are $6 a jar, so if you're interested, please let me know.